It's just an incredible story, and I think it's something that it's a story that needs to be told.
Getting into what happened in America as opposed to how he was honored in Europe, I mean, that tells a very good story.
That oppression of being African American during that time, to be able to soar and excel and fly and be free.
To be able to accomplish what he accomplished, I mean, it was just amazing.
Major Taylor, the inspiring story of a black cyclist and the men who helped him achieve worldwide fame. Our hope is everyone that reads our book about the life of this forgotten legend will come away with something that inspires them and opens their eyes into a part of our history that at one time captivated millions of Americans, Europeans, and Australians. As hard as it is to imagine today, between the years 1870 and 1900, before automobiles, the main form of transportation for most Americans was by horse, or if you were lucky enough to own one, a bicycle. 1893 was the first year Americans bought more bicycles than horses, and 1/3 of all patents that year were bicycle related. Everyone wanted to own a bicycle. Marshall Taylor was born in 1878 in Indianapolis. When Marshall was 13, he landed a job at a local bicycle shop where the owner shooed him into the street wearing a military uniform to demonstrate his riding skills. That's where, according to one legend, someone first uttered the word Major. That nickname would stick with him until his death, and from 1896 to 1910, create headlines in newspapers read by millions of people all over the world. In 1893, America fell into the worst depression in our country's history up to that point. The second major social issue, one perhaps more in Taylor's young mind, was the racial climate. Major was a flat-broke teenager moving away from his family during the worst depression and most hostile racial climate in our history. What do you think his odds of success were? In the fall of 1895, bicycles continued to hold center stage in American culture. With radio and television still decades away, the only access people had to sports heroes either came from reading newspapers or the preferred option, live sporting events, as they passed through the gates of the era's most popular sports, baseball, horse racing, and boxing. But bicycle racing at this time in history was not only the most popular sport, it was the most popular form of entertainment in America and much of the world. The sport of bike track racing Major Taylor signed on to was a very fast, dangerous sport. Taylor was kicked off of tracks in Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Louisville, Kentucky. He was regularly denied access to restaurants and hotels, and at least on one occasion, forced to sleep in horse stables. The majority of Taylor's racing was on outdoor tracks, but his career actually began indoors. In Taylor's professional debut, only 1 week after he had turned 18, he beat the reigning American sprint champion, Eddie Bald, in the half-mile race. Despite the hardships, the extreme physical and racial hardships, Taylor began winning everything in sight and set numerous world speed records. When Taylor showed up for the 1899 World Championships in Montreal, his drawing power helped pull in 45,000 fans, the largest paying crowd in Montreal history. Throughout his career, Taylor received endorsements from manufacturers from all over Europe, Australia, and America. Major Taylor may have been the first African American to secure major endorsements. As early as 1899, Taylor began receiving offers for as much as $15,000 to race in Europe for 3 months. To put this in context, the very first Major League Baseball player to sign a $10,000 contract was Ty Cobb, and that wasn't until 1910. During his career, it's very likely that Taylor drew more fans than any other athlete in any sport anywhere in the world. While Taylor was in Europe, he stayed at the nicest luxury hotels ate at the finest restaurants, and was sought after by business leaders who were constantly throwing their calling cards his way. Rarely was a velodrome seat left unoccupied, and in some cities, attendance and world speed records were set. But maybe most importantly, it was the freedom from bigotry that Taylor cherished most. Barring a few minor exceptions, from the moment he stepped on European soil, the bitter racism, which was the basis of his daily existence in America, had been checked at the ocean's edge. Upon arriving on Australia, thousands of people in boats of all kinds greeted his ship as it entered the Sydney harbor, and the Taylors were housed in a luxury suite in the most prestigious hotel in Sydney, the Metropole. The biggest problem here with Taylor, his 1903 season, was that he was simply just too good. In the year 1903, it was estimated that Major Taylor made between $40,000 and $50,000, the equivalent of several $1 million in today's money. It took until 1920 before Babe Ruth signed a contract for half that amount. Major lived all his life in two extremes. One where he was feted and praised in countries all over the world, the other where he dealt with the monster prejudices so prevalent in America at that time. The greatest summation of Taylor's life was by the internationally renowned sports writer of that day, Robert Colclough, who wrote, "Major Taylor was the most extraordinary, the most versatile, the most colorful, the most popular, the champion around whom more legends have gathered than any other, and whose life story most resembles a fairy tale." It's important to Conrad and I to bring this most definitive biography on the life of Major Taylor to the forefront of American conscience, with the hope it will lift his long-forgotten legacy and finally make the honorable name Major Taylor known to the masses beyond cycling fans. Major Taylor was the greatest athlete of all time. You can find us at www.majortayloronline.com and like us on Facebook.